Debbie Hitchcock down. There's another opening, but I'm going to leave that open at this time. I only want to appoint one at this time. The 911 board, Mr. Brandon Cox will have to come off that since he is no longer on the city council, but I would like to appoint Miss Beth Chandler for that position. I've talked to Brad Monax, and I think that's going to be a good fit. So, and also our city judge, Miss Gayla Hendricks. Miss Hendricks has done a great job, I feel like. I've even talked to some of the officers about her and how she conducts court. She's been to various seminars and training, and I also would like to reappoint her to 4 more years as city judge. So do I have a motion to pass these appointments?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Washer. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chandler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask, well, before I get Mr. Daniel Tribble up, I'm going to, we put out for bids for infrastructure. And there was about 3 roads that we took bids on. This has been a few months ago. The lowest one came in at $939,620. This was, I think we've got, what, $750 in ARP money, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. A little bit more than that amount, but I feel like with what we have in our water and sewer account, I feel like that these projects are very needed. And I've also talked to Greg Davenport with Wofford Engineers. Daniel, at this time, I'd like to ask you to come forward. Is there anything you would like to add about this?
I would just say that we received 3 bids. I think y'all have a copy of the recommendation letter that we sent to Josh. And the 3 bids were from John T. Hall Construction out of Sparta, Pipeworks Plus out of Tullahoma, which was $1,159,000 and change, and HL Construction Management out of Cleveland, Tennessee, which is $1,186,000. John T. Hall was low by almost $220,000. Our opinion of probable cost before the bid opening was approximately $800,000. This was to replace the sewer lines along West Main Street, Carter Street, and Earl Street that you can see some of the streets sinking in, which gives evidence that the sewer line's failing in these locations. And it was our recommendation, based off review of the bids and communication with the contractor, that the project is awarded to John T. Hall Construction of Sparta at a unit price contract value of $939,620. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any discussion? Hunter, Janice, you got anything you want to say?
So, assuming approval tonight, tomorrow I will mail the contract documents to John Hall. They'll sign the documents, execute their bonds and insurance. We'll hold a pre-construction meeting, I would estimate, in approximately a month. And then, as far as starting, the biggest unknown of that is the collection of materials. On this job, I would estimate that the manholes would probably be the longest to get, which I would say would be 3 to 4 months after we have a signed contract. You're probably looking sometime early next year, probably January or February, but it's all dependent upon when they can get their materials in. Luckily, this job doesn't have a lot of ductile iron, which is the longest lead time of almost any water project right now. It's mostly PVC sewer line. But I would expect them to start hopefully early 2023.
I have some questions.
Yes.
So when we were doing the police station, we ran into an issue where the budget had to be changed, unforeseen, the tank or whatever that was there.
Yeah.
And so in this, it says the final contract amount may differ from the bid. And so I'm just curious, what are we looking at as far as unforeseen?
Sure.
When you get down in there?
So the contract is what's called a unit price contract, which means that We put together the design, and then in the bid form, there are items that pertain to each payable unit for the contractor. For instance, a linear foot of sewer line or a cubic yard of crushed stone that's installed in a trench under pavement. And so what we do is we estimate, based off the final design of the project, how many of each unit we think is required to complete the job. Ultimately, that's an estimate, and whatever is in the field is installed and verified by our field representative is what the contractor will get paid for. So it could be more, it could be less, but we try to do our best to estimate what we think the total for all those unit items will be. So the contract final amount will not be $939,620. We try to overestimate, especially when it comes to things like asphalt and pavement and backfill of crushed stone, just because we know it's always nice to have a deductive change order at the end of the job than an increase. I don't want to have to come back and ask for $10,000 more. But ultimately, the final cost of the job will be dependent upon the amount of unit price items that are installed by the contractor. Does that clear things up?
Yes.
Great.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank y'all.
you. So, do I have a motion to award the bid to John T. Hall Construction?
So moved.
All right, motion's been made by Ms. Higgins. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Crook. Mr. Henderson, call roll, please.
Danny Washer,
Yes.
Sean Jacobs,
Yes.
Beth Chandler,
Yes.
Donnie Crook,
Yes.
Jessica Higgins.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, I'm going to ask Mr. Chief Charlie Parker to come forward at this time and let us know his recommendation on new hire.
Good evening. As you know, in this year's budget, we had an approval to hire another daytime firefighter. So we went through the interview process last month. All 6 of our officers and then Alderman Jacob sat in on the interview. We tried to take applications from in-house first. We had 2 applications, so we interviewed those 2 firefighters from our department. Both of them did an outstanding job, but to scoring and everything else, we selected Mr. Glenn Lattimore to be our new hire this year. Glenn has been with us for 14 years as a volunteer for the department, and he's done very well so far. So we've discussed moving forward and what that's going to entail. So he's looking forward to do that, and we're getting him through the process of getting him hired and all the stuff that goes along with that. He's not going to start until actually September the 12th, by the time that he had his prior 2 weeks notice and then taking care of some other work time that he had to take care of. So actually right now his start date's going to be September 12th. So we're just seeking for approval for this to get him started. I've already talked with Mr. Hendrickson and the mayor about it, and Mr. Mr. Jacobs about it. So we would like to move forward and do them as a new hire.
Mr. Jacobs?
Unless you have any questions.
Anything you want to add?
I move we hire Mr. Lattimore for our position.
All right, I've got a motion to approve Mr. Glenn Lattimore. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Washer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. You got anything you want to say? Okay. Next item on the agenda tonight, we wanted to do a water study for our budget last year, and they couldn't get it done. So I think we all kind of agreed that we needed to do one, but it was going to be later. So Mr. Buddy Petty with rate studies, and let me say it's been years since we've had a water study. I would say, what, 6 years? We just need to know how we need to move forward. I talked to the comptroller's office a couple years ago, and of course, they recommended that you go up 2% every year in your water and sewer account, because what I want the public to understand, I want to pay as cheap as I can pay too. I mean, but we have to make money, because if we don't, and we lose money in 2 consecutive years, they can come in and they can set your rate, and we don't want the state to come in and have to do that. We cannot mix funds. We cannot mix general fund with water and sewer funds. It has to support itself. So I think we just need to know where we are moving forward, because we do not want any trouble with the comptroller's office. And you've got this paper in front of you, but it's going to cost $9,000 to do this study. Ms. Janice, I know you talked to Buddy. Do you know when he's going to be able to start?
I'm going to just throw out November probably. He said possibly end of October, but we're trying to get it done before the end of the task force. So he says it may take you 2 or 3 months to gather all the information.
Yeah, and I would like for him to be able to come and present what he finds, because he knows what's going on. So, is there any questions or concerns?
Do you think we need this, Janice?
Absolutely. We've been kind of squeezing along close to the borderline of trying to see. I don't want us to raise anything any more than is absolutely necessary, but we don't want to put off raises for years and then get people with huge raises. So a professional outside study will give us the best analysis of where we need to be.
And where is this paid for out of? Is this paid for out of the water and
Water
sewer
and
fund? Okay. Well, I think it's high time then, make a motion that we're approving this tonight.
Yes.
So I make a motion that we approve the water study.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve rate studies with Buddy Petty, $9,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Henderson, Mr. Money, so please call roll.
All right. Jessica Higgins.
Yes.
Donnie Crook.
Yes.
Beth Chandler.
Yes.
Sean Jacobs.
Yes.
Danny Washer.
Yes.
All right, passes, thank you. The only other item tonight I've got is our first reading on Ordinance 503, and that is our beer ordinance. I've had Mr. Parsley do a lot of homework on this, and I'm probably going to turn this over to him. And Hunter knows a lot about what's going on with the beer ordinance as well. Mr. Parsley, you got anything?
I just want to say to you that this is, most places call it the responsible vendor beer ordinance, and it is something that the state adopted, and they really asked cities to adopt the same ordinance. We tried to craft our ordinance along some of the same things that we had, for example, in the actual ordinance that the state asks you to do. Usually the beer board is comprised of the mayor and the hall. But our board, we have a 5-member board, and we were able to keep that. Also, we kept the 400-foot distance. Now, you'll notice there's 2 punishment provisions which deal with, in order to be a responsible vendor, you have to take training every year, okay? So if that person's a responsible vendor and they do make a mistake and sell to a minor or some other violation, then the punishment is less for them financially than those who do choose opt out to say, I'm not going to do that. So it is best for them to do that, but they have the option of still doing that. This ordinance still provides for the revocation of a license if someone sells beer to a minor twice in 1 year. It also provides to, once someone, a clerk sells to a minor, that you report that to the state, and then they would suspend that operator's, that person's license to sell beer at any place. Also, the new ordinance, our old ordinance had 5% beer, but beer has gotten different from what it was. So they suggest that you say, do whatever the state allows as the of alcohol. So that is a big change from what we had, because before it was 5% or less. There are provisions to revoke a person's license for a period of years too, if they're caught, which would in effect put them out of business. And you can't, in this, you can't transfer those, of course, you can't transfer the license anytime. So those are the major changes. There are some, most of the other things are pretty similar, but this would completely revamp our beer ordinance. And it would make it effective after you pass it on second reading, which you have to have a public hearing, just like for all other ordinances. Any questions about anything that you have? I don't know how long, I think Hunter sent it all out to everyone, maybe about a week ago. And in order for you to look at, and Mayor, and I would say that MTAS and their attorneys out of Knoxville reviewed this, and we made some minor changes even after that, but this is, we won't be able to make many changes in this like most ordinances, because it has to follow the state provisions. And Melissa Ashburn, who is the attorney that deals with our area, said although there could be some minor changes, it would have to be very minor. It would have to pass back over to them to look at. So that's the ordinance. Jessica, do you have a question? Okay, you raise your hand.
Hunter, you got anything you want to add?
No, I'll just read, actually, everything's staying the same except adding this responsible vendor
Well, yes.
amendment, but this will be the, so I'll just go ahead and read the first reading of ordinance number 503. Is an ordinance of the city of Smithville, Tennessee, amending city code document number 175, city code document number 249, and city code document number 308, Smithville beer ordinances, and establishing a new Smithville beer ordinance. And the changes in there, I'll read here, 8-212, revocation or suspension proceedings may be initiated by the police chief or by any member of the beer board pursuant to TCA code 575608. The beer board shall not revoke or suspend the permit of a responsible vendor qualified under the requirements of TCA code 57-506 for a clerk's illegal sale of beer to a minor if the clerk is properly certified and has attended annual meetings since the clerk's original certification. And 8-213, the penalty or suspension, the beer board may, at the time it imposes a suspension, offer a permit holder that is not a responsible vendor the alternative of paying a civil penalty not to exceed $2,500 for each offense of making or permitting to the made to any sales of minors, or a civil penalty not to exceed $1,000 for any other offense. The beer board may impose on a responsible vendor a civil penalty not to exceed $1,000 for each offense of making or permitting to be made any sales to minors or for any other offense. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon its passage upon final reading by the governing body, the public welfare requiring it, which, if this passes tonight, we'll have a public hearing October 3rd before the second reading.
Any other questions?
What's the limit now? Is it 21 or 18?
21.
21. You talking about tobacco?
21.
Yeah, it's 21.
Still 20. That hasn't changed.
18, didn't it? Was it 18 for a while?
A long time ago it
A long
was,
time ago.
Back in the 70s.
but it's been changed back to 21 for a while.
Now it's tobacco's 21.
All right, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 503 on the first reading?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Washer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Chandler.
Jessica made that motion.
All right.
No, she's right.
Oh, well. I'm sorry.
Mr. Henderson, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Jessica Higgins?
Yes.
Donnie Crook?
Here. Yes.
Beth Chandler?
Yes.
Sean Jacobs?
Yes.
Danny Washer?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 503 passes on the first reading. The only other thing I've got, we're gonna have a workshop September 19th at 6 p.m. Does anyone else have anything? The 19th at 6. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Washer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacobs. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.